morning and welcome back to the IT Uni Guru. This is John, and today we're going to talk about goal setting, anti-procrastination, and the brought forward system, not in that order. We're going to start with some goal setting. Okay, how do we set goals? Well, we're smart about setting goals. And SMART stands for specific, measurable, actionable or achievable, realistic, and time-bound. That's what a SMART goal is. And none of this works unless you write it down. If you don't write it down, it never works. It never happened. Okay, so as an example for a goal, say I want to do some running. Right? I've got a goal of wanting to run. Well, it's not actually a goal because I don't know, it's not specific, it's not measurable, it might be actionable, we don't know if it's realistic, and it's certainly not time-bound. So, say I want to run a marathon. Well, out of this, yes, this is specific, but it's none of the other things. So, say I want to run a marathon tomorrow. Well, it is certainly time-bound, but given that I'm only running 15 to 20k a week, it's not realistic. I might manage to get to 10k, and then I've still got 32k in front of me, so it won't happen. Okay, what's my action? Alright, turn up on race day. Hold a tick. Time-bound. Now plus 6 months. Okay, that may or may not be doable, but at least it conforms to the pattern. It's realistic that way. It's time-bound. But if the only action is to turn up on race day, and between now and then for the next 6 months I think, well, I'm going to run a marathon and that's the only thing I contribute towards achieving that, then it won't work, will it? Okay, what if I make a plan that I'm going to stretch 3 times a day to stop myself from getting injured, and then 6 weeks before the race I'm going to run a 30k session. 10 weeks before the race I'm going to do 20k's. 15 weeks before the race I'm going to do another 20k's. And between now and that 20k run, I'm going to try and build up to 15k standard running distance 3 to 4 times a week over the next 3 months. This now becomes realistic, doesn't it? So it's a doable plan if I'm already running 5k's several times a week. Okay, and it ticks all of those boxes, okay, and it's a smart plan that it is specific, it's measurable if I keep a running diary. I've got an action from the screen before, it's realistic, it's within the limits of what I can achieve, and it's time bound because there's a race in 6 months. Now this doesn't guarantee success, but I'm putting a lot of things in place to assist the likelihood of success going ahead. Okay, so how does this apply to uni? Well, we all want to get good results. So how you do, you figure out what results you want to get per subject, and if it's a really hard subject, say you've got to pick up the book with 2 hands and you need to know all of it, maybe a high distinction on that, if it's a brand new subject to you, is not realistic. Maybe it is. That's for you to decide. But unless you are a really exceptional student, straight high distinctions or straight A's in different systems may not be realistic. But if it is, absolutely put it down. So write down your desired, your planned results for each subject for each semester. Make it visible, right? Put it on the back of the bedroom door somewhere so you know this is why you're doing what you're doing. And figure out your weakest subject and put the most amount of work into that weak subject. Don't just study hard at the things you like, or the thing you like the least. Study hardest at the thing you like the least, because you'll be naturally inclined to do the least amount of work. Okay, that's enough about planning. That's enough about SMART goals. Let's look at the brought forward system. Every day we should plan the next day, either at the end of the last day, so just before you knock off you figure out what you're going to do tomorrow, or at the very beginning of the day you figure out what you have to do for that day. Now, with the weekly planner that we've looked at, if you've got certain things that have to happen this week, what you should do is make them an A-grade priority. And then stuff that doesn't, that's important but not absolutely critical or urgent, make that a B. And if there's other stuff that, if it doesn't happen, it doesn't matter, make that a C-grade item. And then as you work through the week, and the A grade items get crossed off the list, the B grade items get elevated to an A grade priority, and this continues down the chain. The C grade items become a B grade item, and then new things get introduced, and this is an ongoing flow from week to week. So if you get to the end of the week and there's stuff that hasn't happened yet and it needs to in the following week, you transcribe that into the following weekly planner. Fairly simple, but this is how you don't miss stuff. Stuff that slips through the cracks ends up being a problem, and this is how we avoid those problems. Okay. So the only thing you would really need to do once you've got this system in place is to set aside your 15 minutes a day to either plan the day that you're about to launch into, or to plan tomorrow, the night before. Okay, so goal setting, long-term planning. You should know when all of your assignments are due. You should know when all of your mid-semester exams are due, for those subjects that have them. Typically, IT classes might have 2 or 3 major assignments, or 2 assignments and a test, equally spaced throughout the semester. Sciences tend to have stuff 6 weeks in from the first day of semester. Ditto economics, they'll have a short test. Law, the same. Biology in particular, they want you to have your plant lists learnt, or your insects lists learnt, or your anatomy lists learnt 6 weeks into the semester, so they can actually talk to you as a professional about these sorts of things. So for every major assignment and for every test, you normal university work needs a solid 2 weeks worth of preparation for each one of these. So you should be able to write an assignment in 2 weeks, having done all the research and answered the question. Ditto, you should be able to commit those short things to memory within 2 weeks. If it's a larger thing that you don't need to know until the end of the semester, we'll get to that in a minute. Okay, anti-procrastination. Everybody does some form of procrastination, even if it's rolling over twice before you get out of bed in the morning. So how do we get around it? Well, from an IT university perspective, or university perspective, study in an environment that limits the amount of distractions. Now that might mean, if you're at home, shut the door and you forget the rest of the house is there, and you turn your mobile phone off, and unless you're actually researching, turn off the internet. It might mean that you don't study at home. It might mean that you study in the library on campus. It might mean that you study at a time when no one else is up in the house, if you're sharing a house. So you're up at 5 o'clock in the morning and you've got 3 or 4 hours work done before you hit campus. Why do we procrastinate? Well, one of the things is fear of failure. If you actually think you're going to fail and you never get to it, you never try, it doesn't really matter. Sometimes it's a function of being overwhelmed. The job is just way too big. Think about it. You've got to learn the entire periodic table of the elements. There's 118 elements. You've got to learn 300 and something IT terms for your networking course, or a Cisco unit. You've got to learn the 205 bones for your anatomy classes. These sorts of things. Well, if you had to sit down and learn 300 IT terms in one hit, you probably wouldn't do it. But if you chopped it up into a list of 10 things, you can have it committed to memory forever in 30 days. You can easily learn 10 things. Not a big job. So, the trick to avoid your procrastination, and again, put it in your planner or your diary, make it time bound, okay? Have a deadline and know what that deadline is. And then divide the job into smaller components, so you do a little bit every day. You don't have to do it all in one hit. Okay, so if you chop it up over a 5-day task, there's only 20% per day. All of a sudden, 20% of something, no matter how big it is, feels a lot less onerous. Let's have a look. So it's achievable and actionable. Okay, so you've got a mid-semester exam in 3 weeks, and you're covering 4 chapters. So rather than try and learn 4 chapters the night before, split the job into smaller components. So we've got 4 chapters, divide that by 3 weeks means you've got to learn 1.3 chapters per week. 1.3 chapters in a week doesn't seem so bad if you commit the time to it. So ideally you want to have this all committed to memory 3 days before the test, so the rest is just total revision. Next, so what if we go 21 days minus 3 is 18 days. 4 chapters divided by 18 days is 0.2 of a chapter per day. Now this is so much more achievable, right? 20% of a chapter in a day. That only sound like a couple of hours work per day. Definitely within your 40-hour uni life scheme. Far more achievable. Write this into the day planner, okay? Or put the chapter deadline into the day planner so you can see how you're going. One of the two, or both. Okay, so you've divided the job. Again, make it a short list. And if you look at that short list, it's measurable, specific, actionable, realistic, and time-bound. A last thing, if you're really struggling with your procrastination, phone a friend and get them to phone you in, say, 3 days' time with the test we're talking about, and see if you get them to ask you if you've done your 0.6 of a chapter in those 3 days. And if you're putting it off, the closer you get to your friend phoning you, the more embarrassed you're going to feel about telling your mate, no, I've been a slacker, I didn't get it done. Will hopefully drive you into action to get it done. Okay, so for summary, make your make your goals SMART. Write them down. Plan your week by prioritizing them, so ABC, and then bringing them forward so that you don't miss anything. Divide your jobs into achievable sizes, set times against those jobs, and phone a friend and say, please keep me on task, please keep me on task. Okay, so what can we do with these? Thanks very much for your time. This has been John from the IT Gurus, and we'll see you in the next session.